one way to get me past a certain benchmark, in my head, I know it's going to be painful. It's going to be a struggle. It's going to be a dark place in my mind. But me, by planning it ahead and thinking it and already putting myself in that, once it came to it, I was like, oh, I'm here. I know this is painful. I'm accepting it, and it's good. I'm fine right here.
Yep.
In life, when you know it's like, oh, this is going to be tough, and it's not probably my best times, but I'm already mentally putting myself in that situation. Once it comes to you, you're like, oh, this is nothing new. I've been here before.
Yep.
I know what it's like.
So, welcome back. If you're truly here to learn about discipline, mindset, and resilience, today's conversation might be a good one for you to listen to. Today, we have an entrepreneur, trainer, fitness instructor, and one of the people I know who is just simply not afraid to take a risk by betting on himself. Mr. Andrew Nunez is joining us today. Drew, what's up, brother?
What's up, brother? How's it going, Tillman?
How you feeling?
Doing well, man. How are you?
I'm pretty good, man. Can't complain. Feeling a little hot right now. I'm outside doing this interview, so it's gonna be fun. You may see me sweat a little bit, but trust me, it's not because you're offending me or that you've said anything crazy. It's just that I'm hot right now.
Okay. Hot topic question. You never know, you know?
Exactly. But welcome to today's discussion. Today, we're diving deep into an enriching conversation about mindset, discipline, and their profound impact on manhood. As we all know, manhood doesn't always have to look the same for everyone, and real strength lies in authenticity and personal truth. Join us as we explore what real men think, how we feel, and how we navigate the complexities of modern masculinity. Overall, man, how's life? What's going on your side?
Man, life's been good. Life's been good. No complaints. I'm definitely. It's a great question because it's kind of putting in this kind of leading way to another question as well. But it's hard to say that life's tough, even though you probably go through your own struggles personally. But also kind of getting the perspective of like you're blessed, right? I have other people, that stories you hear, things you see online, and other things that people are going through that have it worse than you. So even though I might go through some struggles, ups and downs, I always try to. The easy answer is I'm doing well, but obviously there's some ups and downs as I challenge. But I'm very blessed, as I could say, very thankful for what I have going on for myself at the moment. But yeah, pretty good.
So what exactly does pretty good look like?
I think honestly, I have a job that I love. I love what I do, right? I've been in the fitness industry for about, like probably like 10 years now, I feel like. A while.
I want to say like 15, but go ahead.
15, well, full time, 10 years. Full-time, 10 years. 15 total, 10 years full time. But it's been great. I love what I do. I love helping people. Obviously, it's never a day where I wake up and like, what am I doing? At one point in my life, I was feeling that, as you probably know. You and I
Yeah,
probably know that during that time.
for
But
sure.
when I made that transition and that jump to like taking a risk of like, you know what, let's try this out. And at the end of the day, it worked out, and very blessed for that. And other than that, honestly, fame is good, life's good. I think right now for me, other than work, it's kind of finding a balance, right? I
Yeah.
think I know you and I have talked about in the past. My biggest, I guess the biggest word I would probably push myself is finding my purpose at the moment.
Yep. Yep.
Even though life's good, I'm blessed, thankful, everybody's healthy in my life, family wise, friends. It's still kind of that finding that purpose for myself. Even though I love what I do, I still feel like there's more out there that I could achieve. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, for sure. And I definitely want to dive into balance and purpose because those are two of the things that you just spoke briefly about just now. But let's take a step back really quick. One of the things you mentioned was just that transition and taking a risk. So we moved to LA in 2015 and it has been one heck of a journey since then. So walk me through what that journey has looked like for you.
Wow. Um, the journey, I just best describe it. That journey is a roller coaster. That's how I best
Yep.
describe this journey in LA since 2015. Obviously, you know, as you know, because you were there and present, literally there at every moment, every step of the way. Just kind of taking a risk of coming out here with really
Yep.
nothing really planned, no job, just whatever I have saved in my account, which is wasn't much, to be honest. Probably not the smartest idea. But it taught me a lot of lessons along the way, right? I think the biggest lesson that's taught me looking back, and which has helped me along the way in my present moment, is and it's kind of so cliche, but it's not giving up, right? Just kind
Yep.
of staying focused on what you want to do, staying positive, no matter how much the struggle looks like. At the end of the day, it's always going to come out on the bright side. So it's going to come
Yep.
out on the higher end. And I think the first 2 years for myself, speaking personally, was very tough. Obviously, just you know, hardly any money in the account. Kind of just doing any job you could think of, from a moving company to selling tickets at, UC games,
Yep.
doing random, bar jobs when I can, random event jobs when I can. It was just, it was a moment, and kind of just sleeping on the couch for like 2 months, or going on 3 months. It was definitely a very humbling experience, but something I'll probably never forget, and something I'll probably never take granted
Yep.
for, because it's taught me to kind of accept where you are, where you're at in life, and but also kind of find the beauty and the happiness within it. Because even though
Hmm.
there's times that, I mean, I'll be honest, that there's times I sat in my car just bawling, crying like a baby, to be honest, because kind of
Yep.
figure out what did I do? I had a good life in Atlanta. I had a full-time job. I decided to take a risk in life, and I put myself in this position. I had no one to
Yep.
blame but me. And it was like that turning point of just accepting where I'm at, and it's either I could crumble and go back to Atlanta, or find a way. And I make the best out of this moment, be thankful for what I have now. I know I'm not alone, which I wasn't. I had you, I had other friends as well. But it's just, it was just a moment where it's like kind of finding the beauty within that moment, and finding the happiness, and kind of building
Yep.
on top of that step by step.
Yeah. And what's interesting is like during that time period when we came to LA, it just happened to be one of the hottest summers that we've ever experienced here. And I haven't experienced a summer that's been that hot since.
That's
Right
true.
now, I just happen to be outside sweating the same way. But one of the unique experiences that we had during that time period is we had that fan that we had to rotate throughout the house that we were in, because we come to LA and find out there's no central air.
Yeah.
And there was a that was a struggling time period, bro. But I think to your point, we definitely pushed through. We made it. We didn't give up, and we just continue to fight. And so I say all of that to say you've obviously been someone who I believe continues to be willing to bet on themselves and continues to be willing to just take that next risk. So in saying all of that, what piece of advice would you give to somebody if you were to say, like, hey, if you want to take this next step, like moving to LA or leaving the city where you're from, what piece of advice would you give them?
Have money in your account. Just kidding.
It's probably a good start.
Not a good start. No, I mean, all jokes aside, I mean, I think in anybody who wants to take a big risk on themselves, and just kind of
Yep.
make a big change in their life, because that's what I was looking for. People ask like, well, why would you leave Atlanta? You had, I had a decent job. It wasn't probably the best job, but it was paying my bills. I had all my family, friends, everybody was there. I had a good life. I would say it was like I was happy. I wasn't unhappy, but it was this like
Yep.
feeling inside where I was just like, there's more to this. There's more than just like the 9 to 5. There's more than just checking in, checking out, and doing the same thing every weekend. And I wanted to challenge myself, and I'm someone who, you know, likes to push the envelope and likes to cross that line and seeing like how far can I go, right, before I break.
Yep.
And that's what I did. And I think the best advice would give someone else, if they were had the same thought and same feeling, would be just number one, have a plan. Like, what's your plan? Like, what would you want to do? Right? Like an idea, at least. I mean, it doesn't have to be
Hmm.
set in stone, because I didn't have a plan. I just knew. I just wanted to go out, start a new life. You know, wanted to jump into fitness, wanted to jump into the industry of kind of building my own brand. So have an idea of like, okay, if I'm going out there, what's my purpose? And those two things were my
Yep.
purpose. The second thing I would say is have a support system. I remember I was telling one of our good friends, Juliana, and I've done this whole, move out of the city and try it out. And I went to New York first, and I didn't say failed. I did it on a limb as well, but I went by myself, and I was kind of sleeping on the couch, same situation, kind of hustling and bustling, and it didn't work out. Stayed for like a year
Yep.
and a half. I was like, I gotta go back. And my second advice would be is have a support system. In anything you do, it's like even if you're going solo, just know you have friends. Like, hey, let them know like this is what I'm going to do. I want you to hold me accountable, and I want you to be with me
Right.
along the way in the sense of like not physically, but at least, yo, like let's talk about it. Check in on me. Let's have conversations. Like if and I feel like if you have those conversations and you have people around you, um, kind of knowing the struggle, knowing where you're at during that time, it kind of helps a little bit of moving along, and it kind of helps a little bit of
Yep.
kind of uh, staying with it, right?
No, for
And I
sure.
think, yeah, and I think the last thing here, number three, I would say probably is just like I said before, it's finding, it's accepting it's going to be tough, right? I think
Right.
once you accept that's going to be tough and it's going to be challenging, it's you're okay with it, weirdly, right? And I'm going to bring an analogy here of like of fitness here is like I'm a runner at heart, right? I love running. I love doing marathons. I've done three under my belt.
Right.
Um, and one way to get me past a certain benchmark, like say like 13-mile mark, 16-mile mark, was like in my head, I know it's gonna be painful. Like I know miles 16 through 20, it's gonna be a struggle, it's gonna be a dark place in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
But me by planning it ahead and thinking it and already putting myself in that, once it came to it, I was like, oh, I'm here. I know this is painful. I'm accepting it and it's good. I'm fine right
Yep.
here. And I think that really translates well in life when you know it's like, oh, this is going to be tough and it's not probably my best times, but I'm already mentally putting myself in that situation. When once it comes to you, you're like, oh, this is nothing new. I've been here before.
Yep.
I know what it's like.
You have to carry a certain mindset to be willing to not only do that when it comes to running and marathons, as I've seen you do a handful of marathons plus more since I've known you, but in addition to that, you have to have a certain mindset to be able to navigate going on a journey like that, obviously from Atlanta to LA, from Atlanta to New York, and just all over the place. You have to be able to carry a certain mindset during that process. And also the fact that you just mentioned, like going through that, knowing that there's going to be some sort of struggle at some point, there's some mental preparation that you have to do. But what
Mhm.
I'm thinking about right now is, and I know I experienced it, and because I know you, I know there's an experience of that roller coaster that you talked about earlier, where there's this transition period, and it challenges you, and it challenges your mindset. So why don't you share a little bit about what that looks like you as a man and the mindset you have to carry in order to push through in moments like that?
I'd say moments like that, I think I've going back to that moment and of going back to the moment here when I was sitting in that car and I kind of broke down and started crying. And as a man, it's like, let's be honest, like these days are different, but back in the day, I would say, and I say back in the day, like we're older, but like I'm hitting that old stage now. But back in the day, it's one of those things like you got to be tough, right? You got to be
Yep.
tough. You got to hold your head high. Like there's no tears. Like work hard, push hard. But at the end of the day, like I think that moment
Right.
really was kind of like a pivotal moment because I was kind of like just because I'm like crying right now in a car, like literally tears running down,
Right.
doesn't mean I'm weak, right? Because at the end of the day, I'm out here. I'm out here. I'm doing it. I've done everything I can. Doors have shut down. Things are not opening up. It's like, but I'm feeling. I'm like sitting there in my feelings, and I'm just like feeling this moment. And I realize it's like this doesn't define me as being weak. This doesn't
Yep.
define me as being a failure or whatnot. I think it's more of like it just defines me as being human, of like caring for something so deeply, right?
Hmm.
And I think that's just like something that for me was like a mental shift and a change of like sometimes like, if you it just shows you you're human. It shows you like you care so much and you're passionate about it. Like let's be honest, like we
Yep.
see grown men out there and like they talk sports, right? NBA, NFL, whatever, like, see these grown men crying when they lose a championship or whatnot is because they put their heart and they're
Yep.
passionate about it. They want it. And it doesn't mean they're weak. It just means that that's something that they've put, blood, sweat, tears into it, and they believed in it so deeply that I think it's like this stigma we have, like if you cry, that means you're weak. And I've learned that along the way, being out here in LA, that I've hit some walls and I've hit some moments where it's like, you know what? I'm gonna cry. Like I'm feeling this right now, and it's because I care so deeply about it, and I'm
Hmm.
okay with it. So I think it's just that was the moment for me that mentally, I think it's just like accepted. Like, hey, like in anybody, whoever says like, hey, do you think guys should cry? I'm like, yeah, 1,000%. I think it
Yep.
shows you who you are, and it kind of opens a new door for you, right?
Right.
It kind of opens a new like space in your mind where it's like, oh wow, like I feel this and I understand this and like this is how much I cared about it and it shows you how much you cared about it.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about what opening the door means to you.
I think to me opening the door is I think accepting when you're wrong, right? I think for me is like you know, you're sad, accepting when you're mad, accepting when you're wrong. I think sometimes we like to play, that ego where it's like,
Hmm.
you know, I'm perfect, I do great, I'm not sad, I'm tough, I got this, nothing bothers me. But in reality, it's like, it's okay to it bothers you. It's okay that you're sad. Like it hurts. And I think that levels you up so much more when you're aware of how you feel and your feelings, than rather you try to fight those. Because there's a time in my life that I was fighting feelings, right? I was fighting that, like, oh no, like I'm tough, I got this, I don't need to be sad, or like, no, that didn't hurt me, or you know,
Yep.
I got rejected, it's fine, like on to the next one. But in reality, it's like that you're just the only thing you're doing is literally just sweeping it underneath the rug. Because at the end of
Right.
the day, it's gonna always gonna come back around some shape or form. And it's funny I'm saying this now because I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said that a lot of things that I've suppressed in the past and kind of just like sweep it underneath the rug and kind of just like let it pass me and like it's fine, I'm good. I think now, I think now it's everything's just coming up, right? It's like
Right.
going out, and it might be not as clear as day, but it's showing out in different things I do in life and different
Yeah.
friendships I have and different relationships I have. It's like, why am I acting this way? I never used to be this way, or why, blah blah. And I start thinking and sitting and writing stuff down. I'm like, oh wait, I used to be this way, and I used to sweep it underneath the rug, and now this is coming out in this friendship. Or I used to be
Yep.
this way, and this I used to be that angry, but now this is getting me really angry, and I'm like blowing up on this. Why am I blowing up? And it's like, oh, it's because I used to in the past be this
Hmm.
way, and I used to put it in the rug, like, oh, I'm fine. And I think that, and at the end of the day, I'd rather my advice to anybody out there is that to feel those feelings, to sit there and like accept them and like, yo, I am sad right now, and have to like go through it instead of just like, let me sweep it, and like let's pass by it, like live it, be in it and realize it. And I think it's gonna help you in the long run.
So it sounds like there was something that sparked that change for you. Walk me through what that was.
It's a great question, actually. I think that's what sparked that up for me. I think it was just more of I started realizing that here's two things. One thing I always fought against, and an old friend of mine back in the day, years back, would say all the time, like, "Oh, Drew, you're such a people pleaser," right? And I used to fight that completely. I was like,
Mhm.
"No, I'm not. No, I'm not." Right? I'm like, "I'm not."
Yeah.
And but then all of a sudden, like along the line, like my journey, I started realizing I'm like, I used to bend over backwards for people, even though I felt like, oh, like, even though I wasn't at the wrong, I was like, oh no, I don't want to upset them, or maybe this relationship could work if I bend this way or if I go this way. But in reality, I was kind of setting aside how I was feeling during it. And then it was just like realizing I'm like, oh shit, I'm pleasing them, But at the end of the day, like I'm not looking inside myself, like how's this making me feel, right? Or it makes me question myself, like, am I a bad person? Just because they would say, oh, you're this, this, and that. And
Mm.
then the second part onto that to attach it together is that I used to fight again is like, oh, I don't care what people think about me.
Yeah.
And then I started realizing false. Yes, you do. You care what people think about you all the time.
Yeah.
And I used to reject it and fight it against it. And it used to come up again over and over again. And like, again, things in life where it's just people would say something and I like automatically just like triggered, like, oh no, like I gotta put this like front of who I am. But in reality, it's like, why do their opinion matter? Why are they matter? Like, why are you
Right.
worrying what they think about you? Like, who are you? Who do you know inside about yourself? And I think that's
Hmm.
something that I'm not saying I have the answer now, but
Yep.
I do say that I'm more aware of it and accepting of
Right.
it. And I'm like, take a step back and I'm like, okay, wait, check myself for a second. Like, am I wrong at this, or am I being a people pleaser? Am I
Yeah.
really does this person love me and know me inside and out and have the right to judge me for who I am? Either it's a yes or a no, right? If they're
Right.
not someone who's known me for a few years, who's been in my life and the ups and downs, then I'm like, you have no right to judge me. Then it doesn't matter. But at
Yeah.
least now I'm aware of those situations, and that I think those two are where I've kind of I'd say I pushed back in the past.
Yeah. So let's talk about just from a mental health perspective, kind of the ripple effects you feel like that may have in your life. So obviously, I know fitness is really important to you. Is something that we share in, but talk me through some of the ripple effects you feel like having that understanding now that you didn't have before having your life currently.
Um, well, number one, I think for me was obviously fitness has always been my I guess my therapy,
Yeah.
right? That's always been my like my go-to.
Hmm.
Running number one, but obviously with injuries and things that I've gone through, I've had to find different ways. Like, okay, well, I can't run right now, right? So
Yep.
like, where's my? Because I used to be like, oh, I'm upset, I'm feeling a certain way, I need to just let it out. I'm just gonna go for a run, right? That used to be my go-to. This
Yep.
past 2 years, I would say probably has been the most challenging in my life. Um, and obviously I've gone through injuries and relationships and just life in general and jobs and things like that and family stuff that when running wasn't there for me and what still not is still isn't there for me. I've had to, okay, let me shift to something else that kind of opens the light for me. And I think what's helped me out and what I've started doing a lot more is writing things down, right?
Hmm.
But pen to paper and just at the end of the day, I was like, well, what am I supposed to write? How do I start this? And at the end of the day, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to just write whatever's on my mind, just like
Right.
flow, right? Just flow. Even if it doesn't make sense, I'm like, where am I going with this? But I just like write thoughts, like words. I'm thinking, just whatever my day was, whatever I'm feeling. If I'm feeling sad about something, I'm feeling happy about something, just kind of put that pen and paper. And also kind of just finding someone who, if it's not a therapist, because that's something I've tried to before, I think that's also huge. That I feel like something we've never, not, I'll take my personally, I think I've ever grown up, and it's also my culture too. Let's be
Yep.
honest, even if we get a step further and culture wise, like, no one says like, all right, I'm Hispanic, and no one's be like, oh, like you do therapy, right? Talk to someone, and no one
Right.
like you didn't grow up thinking about. No one like my parents didn't do that. No one did that, right? So it's something I've kind of tapped into is doing therapy that I feel like has helped me a lot. Um, and alongside it, even if you are not taking that route of a therapy, like find a therapist is just also like finding a friend to share your thoughts with, It's just like asking someone, hey, like I have some thoughts I want to, kind of get your feedback on, or this is how I'm feeling. Like, let me see if you relate to this. And I think that's definitely helped me along the ways, having people in my lives that, could relate or at least to just hear me out and like give me their view on whatever I might be feeling during that moment.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if you can relate, but just kind of thinking about some of the things that you mentioned earlier in learning that there's a value of going through like all of your emotions and experiencing all your emotions. And for me, you kind of carry this mentality that as a man, you're supposed to be willing to carry the burden of everything. And then when I got into therapy, I started to realize that there's all these things that I had been carrying throughout my entire life, trauma that I didn't need to carry, doing things for people that I didn't really need to do, being that people pleaser, and so much so that I became a proud people pleaser and been happy to help people at the sacrifice of myself. But I go through this experience with therapy and I start to think to myself like, wait, I don't have to do all of this. I can do it if I want to, if I want to be generous, but I don't have to do all of this. I don't have to carry all of this. And it challenged me because at that point in time, my definition of like what manhood actually looked like sort of shifted a little bit. So, how does that actually compare to your experience?
Well, I mean, I'd say for comparison to my experience, I think it made me view things differently a little bit, in the sense of just kind of like, I mean, I would say it's probably the sense of like kind of how obviously I'm in a step in life where I'm like, obviously want to find a partner, right? Find a wife, someone who to grow a family with, to build a team, to build an empire, all the good stuff, right?
Right.
And for so long, and I think what helped me the most, and everybody's obviously experience are different, but I think what helped me the most to grow up so quickly, and I feel like I did grow up pretty quick, is I was raised by my mother, single parent, three kids. I was the oldest of three, and I was the head of the house, so the man of the house, right? So I had to show out and you know do the extra chores and make sure I'm taking care of my younger siblings and doing all the things and staying home while my mom worked. And it's just like I had to like, okay, I'm like, I'm the man in the house. I got to do this and that. And I
Right.
think growing up, realizing like, still, obviously, I'm always there for my family. I'm always there to be a helping hand, like you said, and being a people pleaser and being proud of pleasing people. Like, hey, I'm here to help whenever you need it. But in reality, it's like there's sometimes I'm just like, even though I know mentally like I can't do it, I'm like, yeah, totally, I'm there. But in
Yep.
reality, I'm like, I'm crumbling inside. But
Yeah,
we're
for sure.
yeah, we're like, nope, I'm gonna do
Mm.
this. But it's
Yep.
like, hey, is saying no. And okay, being like, hey, at this moment, I would love to help you, but at this moment, I cannot help you.
Yep.
Because I think just going back to the analogy, it's like, if you see someone drowning, right, and you're a lifeguard, and all of a sudden you start drowning, how should we be the lifeguard? Like, I can't be a
Mm.
lifeguard if I can't help the person that's drowning. So like, I need to pull myself out of the situation first, make sure I'm
Yep.
good and stable ground before I could extend my hand and help someone else out. And I think that's kind of helped me along the way of like accepting like, hey, it's okay to say no. There's nothing wrong with saying no. It's actually a power
Yep.
by saying no sometimes because it kind of just gives you, a moment to regroup for a second, see where you're at, see if you can offer 100% or even something, and then proceed. And going back to, the finding my wife situation, it's like, I think right now, it's funny. I mean, I go through social media and I look at these different like these different pages of like a man should be this and this and that blah blah and I agree. I grew up in a family where it's like you're the man, right? Like you're the household, this and that. But I also part of me is kind of like disagree. Like at the end of the day, it's
Yeah.
like we're a new age where it's like if we want to talk about, and this probably could be some people agree with me or disagree with me, but this is my opinion. If we grow into an age of like, okay, we're all going to be like equal in a certain sense. Yes, I'll be the man in the house. I'm going to be the support and protect all day long, right? And I'm going to try to provide for my family as much as I can. But then of the day, like I definitely want my partner, my wife, to be my teammate, right? I want to
Right.
build this life together and not being like everything on me. Like it's on you because we don't have a house. It's on you because we're not I'm still working. I'm like, well, actually, would love my wife to work. I would love to for you to chase your goals. I would love to be your cheerleader and protect and like be there to support you and be like, yo, you got this, babe. Like, crush it, right? I don't want somebody to be like sitting at home and obviously I would love someone to take care of the kids, but I'd rather be both of us like working hard and then we could provide together, grow our kids together, like, raise our kids together, but not just like a one-sided. Obviously,
Yeah.
and don't get me wrong, saying that, obviously, I would love to just be like, hey, sit at home and go and take care of the kids and just, live life like that. yes, but in reality, I would love my wife to chase her dreams as well, and not just being someone at home taking care of the kids. I want her to have a moment and to like be excited about work, be excited about what she does, and
Yep.
I think that for me, my vision is more of like kind of just like we're kind of like building that empire together.
Yeah. And quite frankly, that sounds a lot like just understanding your purpose and where you are as a family and being able to come together and be able to talk through a lot of those things. So, and I know I mentioned that we'll get back to it. So I think now is a great time to sort of bring that back around. Like, what does purpose actually mean to Drew Nunez?
Great question, because I'm out here looking for it.
Yeah.
But I think purpose for me is finding finding things and moments that fill my cup up, that make me happy,
Hmm.
right? I think for so long, going back to a conversation I had a friend not too long ago, it was, and I said this, it's like I need to stop putting my gratification onto people, right? Like people are not going to make me
Hmm.
happy, right?
Hmm.
Materialistic things are not going to make me happy, right? Buying new things, this and that is
Right.
not going to make me happy. And I think my purpose for me, my definition for that is putting my energy in things that actually do bring me joy and happiness. And it's also that kind of fills me up, what excites me, what makes me go, right? What makes me tick. And I think it's just like finding moments, putting that energy of the purpose of just kind of like building my own brand, building myself up. Because I know if I build myself up and if I find the joy and I build a brand that could be successful one day or will be successful one day, I'm able to help others. So then it all
Yep.
falls into place, right? So it's like I think for me is this the definition of purpose is finding that the putting the energy and finding the happiness and putting the energy towards moments and then things that will fill my cup up. And instead of putting the energy or the attachment on towards people to make me happy, because people day in and day out, no matter family, friends, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, they're always gonna let you down, right?
Right.
And it's not their fault. It's just everybody's going through their own struggle and their own, trying to find their purpose. And along the way, they trip and fall. And just like as we all do, we all humans. Um, I think it's just for me, it's like that's where my purpose stands at.
Gotcha. And you mentioned a little bit about outside of purpose. You mentioned a little bit about balance. Talk me through some of what balance looks like for you.
Um, that's a that's actually on point because along the way of like finding my purpose and finding kind of regrouping what brings me joy and all the good stuff, I'm also trying to find a good balance of you know living the life, doing my job, what I need to do, providing for others because that's what I do in my industry. I provide health and right and knowledge and all the good stuff, but it's finding like, am I doing
Hmm.
enough to still give myself enough room to do what I want to do, right? And not saying that I don't love my job because I do, right? That fills me up, but it's if we're looking at a cup, it only fills me up halfway, right? Like I love helping
Right.
people out. I love teaching classes. I love training, clients and all the good stuff. But at the same time, it's like, okay, what is what is something else that makes me tick? And I think right now I'm trying to balance out life of like things you have to do and need to get done, which is work,
Yep.
right? But then also finding work, checking on your family, you know, talking to friends sometimes, things like that. But then finding the other side of it, where it's like, okay, what is for me? And
Yep.
I think what I'm doing with that is just kind of like clearing the way and going back to what I said before is like learning to say no to things and being okay with
Hmm.
that because
Yep.
that's going to open doors of like more time for myself when I could
Yep.
say, "Hey, I'm sorry, love you, but I need to let like either schedule a date, a time to do it, and then open a space up for yourself because you got to give yourself just like a workout, right? You got to give yourself time to work out. Hey, this time from this time to this time, I need to give myself that time to work out or that time to like focus on my new project. and that's something that I'm working on currently.
Yeah. And you know what that makes me think about? I was reading this article from the National Council for Mental Well-being, and they said in the United States, almost half of adults, which was 46.4%, will experience a mental illness during their lifetime. And I was also reading a separate study that from, I think it was the University of South Australia, that found that physical exercise may be 1.5 more times effective than traditional counseling or pharmaceutical intervention. And I know we talked a little bit about therapy earlier. Like, how does that compare to what your expectations of the benefits of fitness are?
That's a great question. I mean, I think both are great, right?
Hmm.
Even me doing both and trying both. For me, and this is only speaking for myself, they're giving me two different. I use them for two different ways, right?
Hmm.
I think both are great. Me personally, it for me works in two different ways in the sense of like when I talk to a therapist, it's more of a I'm listening to their opinion, right? I'm listening to like okay, what their viewpoints because I love listening. I love like, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is where I'm at. What are your thoughts on this? And they tell me their thoughts. And I'm like, it's a different viewpoint because sometimes when we're so, head down, grinding, working, and it's just like living life, we're so like blindsided by a lot of things. And it's good to hear a different perspective that's not really biased, right? Because if you go to your family or friends or, partners, like they're going to give you their viewpoint because they love you, so they don't want to hurt your feelings and they don't want to, ruffle the feathers up or whatever. But a therapist would just tell you straight up.
Right.
My therapist in the past, I'm like, hey, like I want you to be a straight shooter. Tell me how, like, am I wrong for this, or is this where I should be at, or is this what I should say? Like, and I think that's like a good like back and forth. Like, oh, that's a good viewpoint. You're right,
Yeah.
right? Or hey, okay, like please dissect it a little bit more because I don't understand how you got to that answer, right? Or I'm like, I don't see that. So it's like
Yeah.
finding that one part. But going to the fitness side, it's more of like you and you, right? You versus you. It's like when you're working out, when you're running, when you're lifting, you're in your head, right? Like it opens up. Obviously, there's a lot of like health factors and the benefits of that, right? Endorphins and et cetera, et cetera. But it's also a time for yourself of just like talking to yourself. Because, obviously, which I'm sure everybody already knows, like the person you talk to yourself the most is yourself,
Right.
right? And I teach classes. I teach to about what I see probably about 200 people a day, because my classes are about, 60 classes, 60-person class, and I teach 3 classes a day, sometimes more. And so I'm always talking to people. I'm saying hi, this, talking, coaching, training, et cetera, explaining. But I'm still the whole time I'm talking to myself, and I
Right.
think that time is so crucial because even though you're getting the benefits of like endorphins are rocking, you're like getting through it, but it's also kind of like where are you at mentally? It's kind of clearing space. It's kind of just like thinking about like, okay, either A, like you could digest like issues you might be having, either like with work or with personal, or it's a moment where it's just kind of like, hey, let's cancel everything out for a second and just like be in the moment and enjoy the moment and kind of just self-talk of like being like, hey, like I'm great. I'm good in this space. I'm
Yeah.
strong. Like I'm feeling fast. Like I feel healthy. I feel fit. Like this sucks, but I know I'm getting better. Like it's all like kind of just like moments to recharge and moments to like kind of basically boost your ego up a little bit more to the sense of like, all right, let's get back out there in life and let's get back into it.
Yeah. So speaking about being in the moment, I know we talked about fitness, we talked about therapy. What else do you do to ensure that you're present and in the moment?
Mm, I'd say probably kind of, I mean, this is, I guess, kind of just like really I mean, it depends on what you're doing present in the moment. I think it depends of exactly what you're doing. Like if I'm speaking to you, right? I'm closing everything out, right? And
Hmm.
not focusing or thinking of anything else. I'm just like, I'm trying to engage as much as possible of our conversation or back and forth, right? So whoever you're with and you're talking to them, like try to like put everything to the side and like, okay, let me actually listen to understand what they're saying instead of listen to respond. Because
Yeah.
sometimes we like to, I think we're a society who loves to multitask, right? I love to multitask. You know, I feel like in my head I'm like getting so much done, which at times it can. And some people will be like, oh, there's actually studies that you don't. But in reality, I feel like I get things done quicker. But
I
it,
call it. I know what you're talking about. I called it task switching, and that's what I use now. You're task switching.
yeah, exactly. That's what I do a lot. You know, maybe too much
Yeah.
to be honest. But there's times that I need to like, if I need to do this right, and then if you need to be this fully engaged, that like I need to whatever I'm, you know, this I'm gonna kind of relate this to coaching. Whatever I'm going through, I gotta put it to the side and focus in that moment. You know, for example, like
Hmm.
coaching me a class. I might going through a heartbreak. I might going through something that really upset me, or just something I'm just like having just like annoyed. I know as soon as I turn that mic on and put my music on and I'm about to coach this class, I'm like, you know what? My problems are not their problems. You know,
Yep.
like they need me to like give them the energy. They need me to show up for them and give them a workout that they've paid for and they've like expected me to show. So it's like I've kind of had to like, all right, snap my fingers, close that out for a second. 60 minutes of like this is like in the zone and I'm locked in. And I
Yep.
think that's kind of taught me honestly, that's kind of taught me in like everything in life too. Like if I'm just going through it in the moment, whatever I'm going through, like I gotta like put everything to the side and like, okay, what does actually matter at this moment? And whatever it is, like this matters, and I'm gonna like shut things out, phone away, you know, kind of just like mentally block things out. Like this is my time that I need to focus on this moment.
Yeah. So speaking of being present, there's like this fly that's just constantly going around, man, and I'm trying to be locked in on this energy.
It's
it's,
testing you right here. It's a test.
it's a test in real time, and we all get to see it. But in saying all of that, bro, and there's a lot of thoughts that I'm having, but I want to hear from you. What are you doing right now that you wish you were doing 10 years ago?
Ooh, that's a great question. Never. What am I doing right now that I wish I'd done 10 years ago? I mean, going back to what we said before, I think 10 years ago, I wish I would have gone to therapy.
Yeah.
I wish I would have be okay with feeling my feels. I be in my feels and not stop suppressing them and really feel them and accepting them.
Yeah.
Um, and being okay, being like okay to talk to people. I
Yeah.
think sometimes I am so worried of which again it's a learning process. I'm never gonna say if you know snap your fingers is gonna be like ooh poof like you're there, but kind of just still like being okay to like hey this is what I'm going through right now, right? Because at the end of the day like we're so scared of being judged of like oh you shouldn't feel this way or you know for example like some people might say like oh Drew you're always happy you're always positive you're always this you're always that and not until the last past couple years that I've kind of like you know I was like yes, I am those things. I'm not going to deny I'm mostly a positive person, you know. I've always
Right.
been that. But at the same time, like I'll be honest, like this past couple of years have been really tough for me,
Yeah.
and I'm okay to be honest about that and open about that. I'm not going to just be like, "Hey, I'm great. Everything's great." And I've like, I would have told myself 10 years ago, like, "Hey, like, there's no need to put a front. Like, it's okay to like be vulnerable and talk about it and talk to people about it, and because they might relate the same way."
Yeah. So in that same timeline, the same time period, how has your definition of manhood changed?
I mean, it's changed. I think it's changed definitely a lot. A lot. I'd say. I think it's being. At the end of the day, the key word is to be more vulnerable, right? Being
Yeah.
vulnerable with everything. Um, how I view. Also, how to be. I mean, even in better sense here. Like, I'm gonna take a step further here. How I view women, I'm going to touch on that aspect. Like back in the day, right? Like we always like, oh, like, back in college or whatnot, it's like, oh, like I got these girls, blah, blah. But then I think started realizing and growing up and then seeing my sister and, my mother and just having close, girl that are friends and seeing what they've gone through and seeing like their ups and downs that they've been through has taught me to like, you know, accept who I am. And now let's say this, I'm not perfect, right? But I'd say probably honestly, in the past few years, like the past few years is when I actually started tapping into deeper in myself and be like, what am I doing? Like
Yeah.
if am I being honest with myself? Am I being honest with others? Um, like, does it make me man enough if I'm doing these things? And then the answer was no. Like I'm not being a man because I'm being a coward because I'm not having these deep conversations. I'm not opening up. I'm not being honest with, certain women in my life, or I'm not doing this, this, and this. And I think the past couple of years have taught me to like, kind of be honest, kind of be open, kind of be vulnerable, and kind of, um, you know, just kind of grow up in a way, and it's crazy to
Yeah.
say. Well, I'm about to be,
$30, right?
I'm like 30 years old, right? I'm like in my late early 30s right there. I'm a young spring chicken. But it's like, it's kind of taught me just like, like wow, like now it's like making sense. And I would have wished I would have kind of learned those things in the past because I think it would have helped a lot of situations out a lot quicker, and it would have a lot of headaches and heartbreaks and all that good stuff. So yeah, so I'd say probably that.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So, last question for you: if you had to define manhood in one word, what would it be?
Wow. Um,
And take your time. I could feel in the silence just very awkwardly right now. I know it's a tough question to answer.
it is one word, manhood. I mean, honestly, the only word that comes up to my mind right now would be it's hard to put one word, but I'm gonna just put one word right now. But I'm gonna add a side note too to it. But
Yeah.
it's number one would be vulnerable, right?
Mm.
I say if I could think manhood, it would be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Now, my side note would be is acceptance
Mm.
is, but that leads to different ways of accepting who you are, realizing it, but changing. Because
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's okay to. We're not going to be perfect. We're humans, and we're going to mess up. I still mess up every single day, right? But
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it. As long as, in my theory, as long as you are aware of it, you accept who you are, and like, hey, this is where I'm at, but I want to change this because I know I could be better.
Yeah.
I think it's huge. I think it's huge.
Powerful stuff, bro. Powerful stuff. Oh man. So how can people find you? Like where are you right now, social wise? Like the show is yours right now, brother.
Yeah, you can follow me. You can follow me on my Instagram, Drew Nunez PT. First name, last name, and personal trainer. And I'm in Los Angeles. So whoever you're listening for all around the country, hopefully all around the world as well. Los Angeles, where you find me. In regards to I
Hope
do
so.
all things. Hope so, right? All, I do all things fitness, personal training, all the good stuff, and varies as well. So catch me on Instagram, or I see you in LA.
My God. It's been a privilege as always. Today, of course, we discuss how mindset and discipline shapes the essence of manhood and how these elements offer us the freedom to redefine what it means to be a man in today's world. So remember, discipline equals freedom. And while manhood can look different for each of us, the core values of authenticity, resilience, and integrity remain universal. We are the disciplined man, and this is what real men think. Until next time, Drew, appreciate you, bro.
Thanks, man. Thank you so much.